I think today's first Mass reading can be used in applying to our current situation today, still as we're trying to endure these stay-at-home orders and understanding what's going on with the whole coronavirus situation. So in the reading, we have the situation in Acts 5 where the apostles are going out and they're preaching about the risen Jesus. He's risen bodily from the dead. And the Jewish leaders are threatened by this. So the Pharisees and the Sadducees are trying to put them down. They're demanding that they quit talking about this risen Jesus. And so this man, Gamaliel, one of the Pharisees, stands up on behalf of the apostles. And he gives some examples. He says, look, there have been other people before who have come along and they've gained quite a good following, proclaiming to be some important people. And these important people, Theudas and Judas, when they died, their loyal followers fell away. And so he's saying, look, if this is of human origin, then the same thing is going to happen here. So just let it play out. The problem is, if this is of God, then what you will inadvertently do if you are opposed to the apostles is you will find yourself opposed to God. And that's not a situation that you want to put yourself in. So be patient and just let this play out. Well, the irony of it, it says that they took his advice, but then they still had the apostles scourged. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees here, they're threatened because of the uncertainty that could come from this new movement spreading. They have the uncertainty of, well, if this new religious sect comes and spreads and gains a following, then maybe me as a religious leader, I'm not going to have the control, the leadership authority, and the power and the influence over these people that I once had. And they're threatened by that. They're threatened by the uncertainty that if there becomes this big following that is opposed to Rome, then maybe the Romans are going to suppress it. They're going to put it down by force. And certainly we don't want some physical opposition to rise up. It's all of this uncertainty that's causing the Jewish leaders, the Sanhedrin, to act rashly, to not really think and to even sort of go against Gamaliel, even though it says that they took his advice, that they're trying to suppress it with force by having them scourged. But then notice it says that after they were scourged, they went out rejoicing that they could be counted worthy to suffer in honor of the name. And the apostles themselves were uncertain what would happen to them. All they know is that they have to trust God and that they are doing the work that they are called to do by God. They don't know if they're going to be persecuted or killed, but they have the ability to be patient and to trust in God. And I think that's where we can use that today, right? Is all the uncertainty over, when am I going to be able to go back to work or to church or to school, to go to the next ball game? And when I do, is that still going to be this different experience than it was before, a new normal? And so all of that uncertainty is sometimes causing despair, it's causing anxiety, it's causing us to not follow the orders of civil authorities. And we know that in books of the New Testament, we're told that civil authorities should be obeyed. They're given that authority by God. And we're called to exercise that trust. And this new book that I have, that I started reading, is called Faith of Our Fathers by Mike Aquilina. Interestingly enough, he talks about a couple of early epidemics that plagued the Christian church. He says that there were three that plagued the Christian church that took as much as half the population of the people. And it was the pagans who would leave the towns. They understood enough to know about a virus that would be incredibly contagious, to know that when it comes to your town, there's nothing you could really do. You just have to leave. And so those who could leave, the rich people, the doctors, the pagan priests, those who had the power and influence and the money, they would leave. And they told the pagan families to get out and essentially save yourself, do what you can. But it was the Christians who are bound by their new faith, this Christian faith, to care for the sick and the poor and the dying in these tough circumstances. And so Bishop Dionysius, in the year 260, he writes this about it: that most of our brother Christians showed unbounded love and loyalty, never sparing themselves, thinking only of one another. Heedless of danger, they took charge of the sick, and attending their every need, ministering to them in Christ. And with them departed this life serenely happy. For they were infected by others with the disease, drawing on themselves the sickness of their neighbors, but cheerfully accepting their pains. Death in this form, the result of great piety and strong faith, seems in every way equal to martyrdom. And we even have pagan accounts of the same epidemics where they were described of dying in extreme despair, but it's the Christians who were dying in a state of serene happiness. And the Christians, moreover, were more likely to survive the epidemics. Their mortality rate was only 1/3 of the pandemic simply because they were caring for one another. And then when they cared for their families and their friends and their neighbors and their pagan neighbors, the pagans who survived would become Christians. So even at a time when most of the population is dying away or leaving the town, the Christian church is still spreading. They're spreading in a time of extreme despair and uncertainty because they've relied on their Christian faith, which requires a trust in God. And we know that God most oftenly doesn't work quickly. He works slowly. And that requires us to do what Gamaliel recommended, that with patience we can exercise that trust in God.